Einstein's relativity is considered fundamental to contemporary physics. However, it can be seen at once, unequivocally, that Einstein's relativity is invalid from the get-go. Indeed, observe the founding 1905 paper of Einstein's relativity, published in Annalen der Physik, and open it, for instance, on page 917. Then go to paragraph 10 and have no hesitation in understanding that there is only one way for a law written in system capital K to be represented in system lowercase k, where lowercase k is either at rest or in uniform translatory motion with respect to capital K and vice versa. There is only one way to have Newton's second law referred to capital K to be represented referred to lowercase k and vice versa, where lowercase k is at rest or in uniform rectilinear motion with respect to capital K. Now we can see that, indeed, Newton's second law, written on page 917, is referred to system capital K. And we're interested in this discussion only in the x-axis component, where we see that the spatial coordinate is x, the temporal coordinate is t, and on the right side of the equation we have the x-axis component of the force. Also, we can see that on page 918, Newton's second law, especially its z-axis component, which we're interested in this discussion here, indeed is referred to lowercase k, where c is the spatial coordinate, tau is the temporal coordinate, and this primed quantity here on the right side of the equation is the z-axis component of the force. Also notice that mu, which is the mass of the body, of the electron in this case, is the same in both systems. Because the mass mu is neither a spatial nor a temporal coordinate. Notice carefully, said only one single way of presenting the law is such that the law referred to system lowercase k and that same law referred to system capital K are not affected even when lowercase k is in uniform translatory motion, is in uniform rectilinear motion with respect to capital K. Newton's second law is not affected when referred to lowercase k even when lowercase k is in uniform rectilinear motion with respect to capital K. This is prominently required by the very principle which Einstein himself postulates. This is the very first postulate of his theory. Newton's second law, referred to system lowercase k, is unaffected when referred to system capital K, even when lowercase k is in uniform rectilinear motion with respect to system capital K. Just as Einstein himself postulates in his first principle, first postulate in paragraph 2. Now here we can read this definition, this postulation of this first postulate. It goes, the laws by which the states of physical systems undergo change are not affected whether these changes of state be referred to the one or the other of two systems of coordinates in uniform translatory motion. In uniform translatory motion. Therefore, it is disingenuous for Einstein to have first postulated that the law referred to lowercase k, when it is in uniform translatory motion, is unaffected, but then forget what he himself has postulated and make it appear to the reader that the law is unaffected only when lowercase k is at rest with capital K. But that when lowercase k is in uniform rectilinear motion, that law may be affected. No, it can't. According to the principle of relativity, the law must stay unaffected even when system lowercase k is in uniform rectilinear motion. Furthermore, not only is it necessary to consider that the law is unaffected when referred to a system in uniform rectilinear motion, contrary to Einstein's sudden flip in paragraph 10, making the reader to believe that the requirement for the law to be unaffected refers only to lower and capital K being at rest, in contradiction to the principle of relativity, which he himself has postulated, and which explicitly states that the law is unaffected when the systems are in uniform translatory motion. Not only is it necessary to consider that, but also have no hesitation in understanding that this is the only way a law can be referred to each one of those two systems. Thus, if someone suggests that there may be another alternative way for a law referred to lowercase k to be referred to capital K, that there is an alternative way other than by applying the principle of relativity for a law written in lowercase k to be represented in capital K, as Einstein has carelessly done in his attempt to make a discovery at any rate, then it would mean that one and the same body in one and the same system, system capital K, will obey two different laws of motion at the same time. Thus, instead of Einstein conceding to the obvious fact, to the absolute truth that there is only one way of representing the law in these two systems, there is only one way of representing the law in these two systems, which are in uniform rectilinear motion, namely only by applying the principle of relativity, and therefore refraining from publishing the theory at all, because This representation is trivial and is no discovery at all. Instead of applying the only possible way, the principle of relativity, of representing the law, even when the two systems are in uniform rectilinear motion, he uses a surrogate way to represent the law written in lowercase k into capital K. Conveniently forgetting what he himself has postulated in order to appear that he's making a discovery. In order to appear that he is making a discovery, he distorts his own postulate and now claims that when systems are in uniform translatory motion, presenting the law written in lowercase k into capital K now has to be done by using the so-called Lorentz transformations. Never mind that the law is affected by the Lorentz transformations, which, as we saw, his own principle of relativity forbids. Thus, Einstein does something which his own postulate disallows. So he uses Lorentz transformations to represent the law referred to lowercase k into capital K. Uses the Lorentz transformations. Notice, as a result of this alternative representation, the x-axis component of Newton's second law in capital K contains a coefficient beta cubed referred to the same system capital K, where this same component of the law referred to the same system capital K does not contain beta cubed. No. This is the second representation, and you can see beta cubed So in the first case, the law, Newton's second law, reads mu d2x dt squared equals epsilon x. This is the x-axis component of the law. While after the application of the Lorentz transformations, the law now reads in the same system, capital K, reads mu beta cubed mu beta cubed d2x dt squared equals epsilon x. Now notice, the law in the first case doesn't contain beta, while the law in the second case does contain beta cubed. Notice how in the second derivation the law of motion has beta cubed. While beta cubed is not seen in the first derivation. This is obviously physically impossible. It is not possible for one and the same body in one and the same system capital K, to obey two different laws of motion at the same time. Deriving, as Einstein does, that one and the same body in one and the same system may obey two different laws of motion at the same time, in effect means that what Einstein has derived is that 1 equals 2, which is an obvious nonsense. The shown internal contradiction between the Lorentz transformations and the principle of relativity, the shown deriving that 1 equals 2, invalidates Einstein's relativity in its entirety, prior to any attempts for its experimental testing. Such testing is unnecessary once it is seen that there is this internal contradiction. This fatal flaw makes both its experimental testing and any further developments such as general relativity, string theories, cosmology, and whatnot, moot. No experimental proof whatsoever can be expected of a theory deriving that 1 equals 2, as Einstein's relativity derives. Neither can any physically sensible follow-up be expected, which has its basis senselessness, such as the senselessness shown above. As a matter of fact, the senselessness shown has its roots in the initially senseless postulation of two mutually exclusive postulates, of two postulates contradicting each other. This argument shown here, however, suffices to reject Einstein's relativity entirely. Despite the numerous arguments so far against Einstein's relativity, some correct, some the result of misunderstanding, this argument shown here is the final argument, cutting into the heart of the theory, exploring its flawed nature in its own terms. Therefore, we will not waste time to demonstrate why the first and the second postulate contradict each other. Also, the argument shown must not be construed in a sense that even if Einstein's relativity is invalid, Lorentz transformations alone can still be used in physics because they are mathematically consistent. On the contrary, Lorentz transformations are indeed mathematically consistent, but they have no physical meaning and therefore have no place in physics at all. Thus, not only are Lorentz transformations non-physical because of the shown conflict with the principle of relativity, because of their conflict with the first postulate, but they are non-physical because they are in violation of the absolute truth that spatially coinciding clocks are synchronous, and also because Lorentz transformations destroy the very notion of length of a body. This will be discussed in another video.